Stalin's regime moved to forced collectivization of agriculture. His intentions were threefold: to create large-scale mechanized farms to increase agricultural output, to have direct political control over the peasantry, and to make tax collection more efficient. These agricultural collectives radically shifted the social landscape among the farming peasants, not seen since the abolition of serfdom in 1861. It also alienated the farmers from control of their land and its produce. Collectivization also drastically reduced the living standard for many peasants. Although predictions for the mechanized farms were optimistic, the output was not what was expected in the first year. An angry Stalin immediately placed blame on the kulaks, relatively wealthy peasants, who had resisted collectivization. Despite the fact that the kulaks made up only 4% of the population, Stalin targeted far more, estimated to be about 60% of the peasant population. Those defined by Stalin as kulaks were to be shot, placed into Gulag labor camps, or deported to remote regions of the Soviet Union. Archival data shows that over 20,000 peasants were executed in 1930 alone. The Soviet famine of 1932 and 1933 killed many millions in the major grain-producing areas of the Soviet Union. The death toll of the famine is estimated at between 5 and 10 million people. While most modern scholars agree that the famine was caused by policies of the Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin, there are historians who claim that natural causes contributed to the problem as well. However, according to Alan Bullock, the total Soviet grain crop was no worse than that of 1931. It was not a crop failure, but the excessive demands of the state, ruthlessly enforced, that cost the lives of as many as 5 million Ukrainian peasants.
In order to rapidly build the industrial state Joseph Stalin desired, he refused to release large grain reserves that could have alleviated the famine. He even exported grain to fund Soviet industrial power. Stalin was convinced that the Ukrainian peasants had grain hidden away. He strictly enforced draconian laws against theft in response.
The Holodomor famine specifically targeted the Ukrainian people in order to destroy the Ukrainian nation regarding political power and society. Holodomor is literally translated killing by hunger. It is also called the Ukrainian Genocide, implying it was engineered by the Soviet government and Stalin. While historians continue to disagree as to whether or not the Soviet policies fall under the legal definition of genocide, 26 nations have officially recognized the Holodomor as such. Soviet policies greatly exacerbated the famine's death toll. For instance, Stalin exported 1.8 million tons of grain during the height of the starvation, enough to feed 5 million people for 1 year. Soviet agents used torture and public executions to extract as much grain as possible from the already starving people. Stalin's regime also used force to prevent those in the worst affected areas from fleeing. Stalin also refused to import grain or secure international aid. In short, Stalin used the famine as a cheap method of executing millions of people without having to waste any ammunition on firing squads or wood to build gallows. And it is well known that starvation is a slow and painful way to die. Current estimates on the number of those who perished due to famine are between 2.2 million to upwards of 5 million.